You got Henry on the screen.
Hello, hello, world, and welcome to another episode of
By any means. Bam.
BAM by any means. My name is Henry Lucas.
And I am Sharita Walden, your host for this podcast, the best podcast in town right now, like for real.
I know I'm starting to become quite fond of what we have created and what people are buying into. So, how are you doing today, sis?
I don't know. I mean, rolling down the street, smoking in the
Yeah.
sipping on. No, I'm just playing. Listen, I'm doing really, really good. I'm just really pumped, but I'm doing really good today, Henry. I mean, I'm feeling it today. I
What are you feeling? What's going good for you today?
am. I had an awesome meeting to start off this morning, a great check-in with our board president, hint, hint, and director of operations that really affirmed where we are going here at KYHRC. It's it's such a magical process to watch everything flow. Like we're building, we're building train tracks. We got the train, and we are going. So it felt really good. It was a good pump in the like not the middle of the week, towards the end of the week, but it was really good to check in the way that we did. So it really set the tone.
And if you run a nonprofit, if you work at a nonprofit, if you're on the board at a nonprofit, if you receive services from a nonprofit, if you donate to a nonprofit, thank you so much. It is a lot of work. There are a lot of challenges that we're constantly navigating over here at Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm just feeling really good. We got some good stuff going on, and I'm excited for our community to continue to follow us and see. So as you guys are jumping on, like, share, subscribe to our podcast. These topics are getting hotter and hotter as the week, as the months go on. Hey, Ryan. Hey, we see you on there. One of our podcast team members, producers, is on the road. So we're hoping that he has safe travels, but is joining us from afar. So we got Sarah, who's one of our people in the back doing the jam and doing a great job while Ryan's away. But yeah, we are so excited about the things that are coming and all the things we want to share about our organization in the next couple of months. Um, Donate. We know $40 may not be something that a lot of people can do, but $40 is not the end all be all. $2, $5, 250 a week, right? Those dollars add up. Joining us for our kit making parties. We got one coming up by the end of the hopefully towards the end of this podcast taping. We'll have it on there, the date of the next kit making party. But it just came to mind that we have one coming up. So another opportunity. And if you work at a business or a nonprofit organization, reach out to us so that you can host your kit making party. Our leadership and our team members will join you there. You do not have to do it by yourself, but you'll get a chance to engage with us. We'll also get a chance to really learn more about our organization if you're interested in joining us on this journey and how we could use your support. Right? You want to say something, Henry, to that?
yeah, we are in Kentucky in in Louisville and the surrounding counties. And if you live outside of that, it's too far. If you live in another state or if you live in another country and you're working with harm reduction and you like what you hear, you like what you see, feel free to reach out and we would love to schedule a discovery call, see how we can support each other in the ongoing efforts of what it means to work in the space of harm reduction.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, like I said, we'll be dropping some dates on our next podcast. I'll have a couple of dates out there for you, hopefully, especially as we go into another year. We have some celebrations and opportunities to donate. We got a film that we'll be talking about here soon. Um, I'm surprised, and I'm not really surprised, but I'm just excited. And someone from California, Los Angeles, wants to work with us to showcase this film. So more to come about that. More exciting news to come about that. Also, Henry and I will be co-facilitating a session coming up pretty quickly, right, Henry?
Yeah, about 5 weeks in
Oh yeah.
Lynchburg, Kentucky. Yeah,
Yes. So we'll be back at it together again, co-facilitating with the Kentucky Addiction Association. I think those are the acronyms. I'm always CAP, KAAP. And if you are attending this conference, if you're a drug and alcohol counselor, a social worker, get in our session. We're going to be sharing some things that we do as experienced clinicians. We really want to share our insights. Okay. So this is going to be an amazing time. You won't regret stepping into that space. So looking forward to engaging with the folks out there.
the session's at 10:45 a.m. Are you gonna be able to make it there? That's a little early for you.
Listen, don't start. This is too early. This is too early, right? And I know people out there want to co-sign and be like, I mean, he right, Sharita, but don't go there. Don't go there. Anyway, yes, I'm gonna be on time and be there because this is important. So yeah, so I think that's pretty much all of our big announcements for now. Again, stay tuned. We are still working on our in-person session when we do that again, but I think listen, the next one, Henry, is going to be packed. People have been asking about it. People want to get in the space with us. We built up some folks on our side, and people want to engage in tough conversations too. So this
Yeah,
is going to be interesting. So excited. So what's happening today, Henry? What's happening this month? We're in a new month.
we are. We're moving into a little bit more of our culture,
Yes.
and you you can't talk about culture. And here's something interesting. Ever since the beginning of time, across all cultures, there have been three things that have been staples in all cultures since the beginning of time: language, how we
Mm-hmm.
communicate, music, and art.
Hmm.
And that's a lot about what we're going to be talking about really this month. And today is the arts, the arts and culture recovery and what we got wrong.
Yes. Rewriting the script, you guys. Well, that's what we talk about a lot. We talk about it from different aspects. Like last month we had folks in here. We're talking about how we're rewriting what recovery looks like. Now we're talking about let's get down to some root stuff. Culture, recovery. Where did we get this wrong? And I think we might even change that language. It's not I don't know if it's necessarily that we got it wrong, right, Henry?
No, it's it's not wrong if it was most appropriate in the time that it was discovered or the time that it was created, right? And so the real problem is a lot of these things that we talk about have not evolved with our society. They have not evolved with our culture. And
Mm,
so it's not so much that it's wrong, it's really that a lot of these practices, a lot of these philosophies are outdated, right?
mm.
And so we're really here to modernize and to update it so that we can really create a culture of inclusivity.
Mm, mm. So as we continue to have that conversation, I think is what we have discovered is we can't leave out. all the parts that play into what drug culture looks like, or what culture and how dynamic it is. So I think it would be appropriate to really start at what is it that I started this conversation with one of my songs that came to mind ever since we decided that this was going to be a topic for the month. I've been thinking about all the songs that I felt influenced by. And the first one that always comes up is the one I was singing, Rolling Down the Street. Like, that was one of my favorite songs. But when I listen to it and I think about it, I'm like, wow, we, I mean, I was talking about using before I tried,
Yeah.
even tried. So where do we start at? Like, where did this really start? Because we talking about
Well,
just,
yeah. I think music speaks to the experience of our culture.
mm-hmm,
And music speaks to the experience of certain groups of people within a culture,
mm,
right? And as much as we don't want to really admit it, America has a strong but secretly kept drug culture. We love drugs in the United States. 75% of the world's drugs are consumed by Americans.
mm, wow,
And it's not just drugs. We're consumers. We like consumption. We like not just getting high and drinking. We like all of those things that give us dopamine rush.
mm-hmm,
Whether it's shopping, gambling, if it's sex, drugs and alcohol, productivity, working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And you hear songs currently that describe all aspects of our culture collectively, and again, in these more sort of segregated groups of people. Um, but that also means drugs. It
mm,
also means, and we can't say drugs without, alcohol. And there's a couple songs that are out now, a couple songs that are out more recently, some popular songs. And, my 8-year old daughter, she loves them and she'll sing them and I'll get to listening to the words. And I'm like, no, we ain't about to sing about getting drunk in here. We ain't about to sing about getting another bottle, we're getting tipsy,
right,
you know? And so it's really challenging too, because here is my 8-year old that is singing lyrics to a song, and she doesn't have that experience and she doesn't have that knowledge base about what it actually means to be tipsy or to get drunk, or what alcohol really even is.
mm,
And so yet there is an impact that we know that music has on substance use. And so it can create kind of a cycle. The culture has influence on the music that gets put out.
mm-hmm,
The music that gets put out reinforces what's actually happening in our culture,
mm,
right? And there are statistics out there about teenagers are 40% more likely to explore and experiment with substances if they listen to music that regularly talks about substance use and alcohol use. And for teens between the age of 12 and 17, that 40% doubles when they listen to music, that glamorizes substance use and alcohol use.
absolutely.
And I'm just thinking as I'm talking now, all of these, songs um, um, come to mind, like the song, Percocet, Molly Percocet, and it's like, what a hell of a combination of drugs to put
Right,
together and to mention, in the same song. But if I weren't to know what, if I wasn't to know what a Percocet was or what a Molly was, then I would begin to I would get curious.
absolutely.
And then if I look at the town that I live in, the city that I live in, if I look at my parents' attitude towards substances, my parents' attitudes toward alcohol, I look at like living in a chaotic, abusive home, like all of these things are potential risk factors for someone to develop a problem with substances and alcohol.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of my favorite groups to do is one of the prevention groups that I do in the community. And what we do with the youth, what I do with the youth is we'll start out the session and I'll play a particular song that's layered with substance use. And like one time I used sativa, but by okay, I'm not gonna pronounce it. I'm not gonna try to pronounce her name, but people know if they look it up. But when I play the song and I'm watching the youth go around the table of the fake drugs and alcohol that I have set up, and you listen to them talk about it or they're singing the lyrics, it's almost, I was telling someone, it's almost hypnotic. It's almost as if they're just drawn into the lyrics, but not completely understanding what it means. And that's how it starts. We start dissecting the song and looking at the video, and then reality. It's like there's this perspective in the song, this perspective when I watch the video, but now let's talk about what that reality could look like. How does it really feel? Do you know what that feeling? What do you think she means when she talks about how she felt or when she sat down to do it? What do you think she's looking for? So having them think about it and then them put it on themselves. Well, I want to feel that way. I want to feel relaxed. I want to look that way. So it's not even, I remember growing up, Henry, and you had to pay to get the box, right? So I could watch a video.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to have all the layers of messaging coming at me, not just the song, but not all of the visuals. Now we got songs, visuals. We got other people visuals that add to it because people will do their own thing. We got so much coming towards us, and then we have, but don't do it. So I'm like, whoo.
And it's sending, it sends a one-sided message, because it's not just the messaging that we get online or on Spotify. Or is MTV still a thing?
It is, but we both about the sound. Everybody gonna clown us later because I don't watch MTV at all. But it's not how it used to be. I know that much. I don't
Well,
watch.
I don't know it, but it's um, we also have to consider how powerful peer influence is. So
Hmm.
yeah, I can see it being glamorized on TV and how cool it looks when you got folks on jet skis and you got folks on yachts, and they're popping bottles and they're partying, and they look free, and everybody is beautiful and sexy and vibrant. But I go to school, right? Or I go somewhere,
Hmm.
and it's there, you know, and it's there, and then I go home and I'm told that drugs are bad.
Right.
Or I go to school and they've got some dog, some big fluffy mascot dog that comes in and tells me, just say no.
Hmm.
And that messaging doesn't nearly hold the weight, and it's not as exciting as the other types of messaging. I know right now we're sort of speaking more to our younger audience and adolescents, our teenagers. But teenagers are always going to choose excitement and always choose their peers over everything else, because that's what they value, more than anything. And that has a lot of the greatest influence on what's shaping the development, of our young people.
And I don't think we take that to account, Henry. You brought up a good point as we segue into really talking about, because this is what we're talking about for those that are joining us where we started, right? we talked about the influence of the arts. And as we're bringing these conversations in, looking at the youth perspective and how we connect development, stages of development, it makes sense that a younger person, a younger individual, is going to be more self centered around what they want, right? Versus addressing our needs is what I want now. And I think we take that away. And I think when it comes to programs, and this is where I struggle, Henry, when I say, okay, I'm meeting a youth who is in recovery. You're 15 or 16, and now you're abstinent. And we still have a culture that says, but when you turn 25, I mean 21, you can legally do these things now. So you were just illegal, which was wrong. You shouldn't have did that before 21. But when you turn 21, it is actually okay. And I can't imagine me being 15, someone, I'm going through a treatment program and now I'm supposed to abstain from all mood and mind altering substances, follow a 12-step program that even as adults struggle with following through with the 12 steps and working through the program. But I'm supposed to commit at the stage of development that I'm at 15 to what a 32-year-old is still struggling with, because what we know is that dependency can cause issues with moving forward in your development, social development, and personal development. So I'm like, we're trying to layer these approaches over while negating development, just plain old human development, which says that that is actually where they're at in life.
Yeah.
To challenge systems, to challenge authority, to become themselves. And this isn't a bad thing, but at the same time, we have more access and more influence from what we're doing, like what's happening around us.
It's a cultural problem.
Yes.
It's not a drug problem. This is a collective issue in our society, culturally, across all subgroups of cultures.
Hmm.
But I can't be mad. I can't hate. Again, music reflects reality.
It does.
I heard a song. I bop. And I heard a song, and it went. It went hard, and I'm following along with the lyrics, and they get to this part where they talk about selling fentanyl,
Right.
and and I realize that's part of some people's culture.
Hmm.
Like that's a real reality. That's a potential, opportunity for somebody. And I noticed what my body was telling me, and I turned it off.
Mm.
I turned it off. And actually, when I'm in the car, there's a lot of times when I just ride in silent. You know,
Hmm.
think and to reflect and to become inspired. Music's powerful, though.
It is.
You know,
Um,
and I want to say our call this morning that you referenced. You may not have caught this, but when we got on the call, you were listening to classical music, and you said, "Oh, hold on, let me turn this classical music down. I'm in here getting my head right before I start my day." Right. So again, music is a powerful influence, and
hmm
what we decide to listen to, it can make us feel certain feelings. It can make us, feel certain thoughts. Right. So depending on what I want to think or what I want to feel, it might determine what's in my tape deck. I don't have a tape deck no more, by the way.
I created one with Apple Music. And as you're talking, that's literally what I did, since I used to make tapes off the radio, and I had my different, so now on Apple Music I have playlists, and I have playlists for my mood. I have playlists, like I have one that says yep, Now that's usually the one that if I'm in a space where I just want to fight, that's why it says yep. And it has the eyes that are slit like this, like you're looking at somebody like. And some of the songs, there's a song on here called In the Air. And when I look at the lyrics of In the Air, and I think about what's being said, smoke is all in my lungs, but my judgment's not that cloudy. Too high to get over on me. You lost your mind, think I found it. I feel outstanding. Screens falling, watching Titanic. You still taking no for an answer. I'd rather take my chances. Like all she's talking about, and she goes on into this. And although I'm not sitting here puffing, she's talking about smoking a blunt and she's reflecting on this day or what she wanted to say and how she wanted to approach it. It's almost as if I can feel what she's feeling in every song on that playlist, right? If I, in my mid 40s, can feel and take all this in and know how to put it in words and say, yep, I'm listening, or what you just did, what you just did this morning, right? You had the classical music going. You said you're preparing. If we can do that, why do we not give our youth enough credit and even commend them? Like, I know what kind of mood my kid is in, and I'll do what you did. I'll say, what do you know? He's listening to some old school stuff. At one point he may have been talking to a young lady, and I can feel the love in the air because every song was music soul child, and I was like, look at him, and I acknowledge that so that he can connect it himself because maybe they're not, but connecting it and letting them see. Or when my daughter listens to some real trap, I mean, every other word is a profanity and it makes no sense to me, but it's doing something for her. It's the headspace she's in. It is powerful.
Again, music, right? Like music represents our culture. So if somebody is putting out music and I identify with that particular group, it's almost made for me. It's almost made on my behalf because it speaks to me,
Mm,
you know. And I before I got into recovery almost 17 years ago. Most of the music that I listened to, it was all about causing harm and getting high and breaking the law. And now I'm not saying I still may not put something in from time to time, but it's interesting as I've changed and as I've evolved when it comes to music, like how my choice in music has also changed
mm.
to reflect more about who I am, to reflect more of this culture, that I'm a part of.
Absolutely. I think that this is just one of those spaces that if we could help, I would love for people to have more of these conversations. And I think this is why, again, it's another reason why harm reduction and really utilizing the foundation and this pathway as a way to create that space, because it creates a space automatically for the non-judgment of why, Henry, I can remember working in treatment programs where we had rules, and you probably remember some of these, where people couldn't wear a t-shirt with the marijuana leaf, right, on on it. Like they couldn't wear that in there. And don't you be a staff person and you come in and you got a hat with the leaf on there. Like we had really interesting rules that said no. So we're gonna just snatch it away. So we're talking about clothing. But never explaining to people. I don't recall ever just really sitting down explaining the connection so people understand. We got a comment in here from Ryan. He's adding to the arts and saying even poetry and painting, etc., is impacted. Dancing. right? All of these pieces, that's true, Ryan. All of those areas of the arts, and art is, an imitation of life, as people, artists pour into their work as an expression of what's going on. They don't just pull from out of, they're pulling, as an artist myself, we pull from our experience, is lived
Yeah,
experience.
yeah,
So it's just really utilizing this space. I remember telling parents, and I want to share this with parents. A lot of parents, especially in our faith-based spaces, religious spaces, would say no, no secular music. And a lot of my friends would be, interested in the conversation I'm having, because I would say, no, my kids listen to anything. The catch and the kicker, and they would always tell their friends in the car. When we get in the car, I'll be like, what you all want to listen to? And they say, don't go for it. They say, if you say it, she's going to let you play it, but you're gonna have to talk about it. Like, I want to know where your head is. If we're gonna listen to it, I want to know, because if we're gonna listen to "Cut It," which is a song that I used to like listen, go cut it, cut it, cut it, and my kids had to tell me to go watch the video because I was listening to the words, and when I decided to listen to the words, I was listening to the beat. It's a cold beat. But when I listened to the words and watched that video and saw they were really about cutting up cocaine, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. That's what he's talking about? Cut it, that cool beat. My kids was like, yeah, you've been singing it. But that's what we do, is we sit down and we actually talk about it, because I want to know where my kids' head, if I'm looking at development, I want to make sure that they see this just like they see the Avengers.
yeah,
I want to make sure that they see this as entertainment, because it is entertainment.
yeah,
But we need to have the conversation around why you're listening. I'm not going to stop you from listening to a song just because you're going to go out and sneak and do it. And I don't want that. I want to understand why you like this particular song and what you think they're talking about, so I can have a better understanding. And I had parents do that to learn more about their kid.
and this ain't new. I mean, we just go back, um, you know, 50, 60, 70 years, as our society has changed and evolved, as culture has shifted. It's all right there in the music that we listen to. You go to the '60s and you go to the counterculture revolution,
Mhm.
and the psychedelic use, and the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
You know, and you go through the '70s, and you've got Disco Fever. The Bee Gees, and um, uh,
Reggae. You
uh,
got reggae, Bob Marley, the Marleys. Ooh.
yeah, all of that, and it just tells the story of the times that we're in. But it is really interesting if you compare generations, or if you compare like decades of how differently they talk about drug use in the culture.
Yeah.
It was almost like you had to really listen to it, like that Beatles song, "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds."
Yes.
That's the song about LSD,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then you listen to another song, and they telling you right there, I'm in love with the coca.
Right.
You know,
There was one with the dice. Someone told me, with the dice in the mirror. Oh, what is it? Someone will figure it out. It's an old song, but they were like, what they were talking. Like, all these songs, you're so right. The It wasn't as direct in your face. You had to listen to it. And honestly, Henry, some of the songs that I learned later in life, I feel like you had to be a part of the using culture anyway to kind
yeah,
of know, right? What they really were talking about. Some songs they were not. I will say my only disappointment in art is that there is something about having the mystery. You know, that's probably the biggest thing I do forget. I mean, I'm not forget, regret is
yeah,
mystery
yeah.
behind
I
it.
like the word mystery. it should be open for interpretation.
Yeah.
Like a good piece of artwork resonates with everyone that looks at it or listens to it or tries it on. You know,
I mean, we probably could do a whole nother episode on how we've moved to a culture and a society where we're taking away thinking, like actual critical self thinking, reflection. Like, it's a little scary to think about that everything has to be so explicit.
yep.
And some of it comes up because we've run into so many scenarios and situations where implicit created harms and having to, but I think it's just the culture we have in the United States of America that's built off of fear and the fear of trouble or going about it in that way to stop things is you're going to get in trouble versus let's educate people on how to.
Well, I think our pieces of our Constitution play in it too, right? Freedom of speech,
Yep.
and how we saw in the hip hop community in the last few years, the litigations and the trials and things that have been going on for people being maybe rightfully and wrongfully accused of things that maybe they said they've done in music. So it's just really fascinating. But regardless of all of that, we know that music is a powerful influence that can have a powerful impact,
Yes.
one way or the other,
Yeah.
right? And I think it play. If we're talking about stigma, if we're talking about shifting
Hmm.
things and updating, where we went wrong, we have to include the arts. We have to include music as a reference point, but also as a catalyst,
Mm.
to get us there, because it offers, the arts and music, it offers hope. It offers an outlet. It offers at times for me, music has been, sometimes the only thing that I can connect to on a real level when the rest of the world around me feels like it's falling apart and that it's inauthentic.
Absolutely. Music, I mean, growing up in the 80s and some of the 90s, that's how we communicated. Sending your tape that you created to someone that you care about, or that it was the way we expressed ourselves. And I think for me, as I look at the unlearning that we continue to talk about in so many of these episodes, I think it dawned on me to use the arts when I actually made the change of leaving the art world and moving into social services. And I mean, that was the beginning of the unlearning. So I promise you, I still started this the way most clinicians start. You better stop or you're gonna die. So I like to let remind people that I was there. But I think back on, I have this whole bachelor's in theater. I have all this experience in theater, and I remember working in one of my first programs with youth in jail in Illinois, uh, and remembering the goal of this program, Music Theater Workshop, was to go into these spaces with youth who are incarcerated and actually go into the penitentiary and helping them create from their experience. And then they put on a play. Really taking those worlds and saying you can use this to express yourself. So maybe you didn't know how to speak up in court or you didn't know what to say to the judge, but now we're going to demonstrate it. And you have all the space in here to do it. That is was pivotal in fast forward when I started clinical work and I'm working with a local organization here. I work with the HIV positive population and was like, we're going to role play how to disclose role playing arts. Let's act it out because there's nothing here to stop but allow you to take the experience and transmuted here in this safe space that you've been able to create with me. And I'm like, that's if we can do that in these very contained spaces, we can also do that in spaces where we don't have a lot of control, which is where we are in harm reduction. It's a very unique space on how, which is taking this podcast, for instance. We talked so much about what is it that we really do. People want to know, how are we working? How does this work? Well, let's show them. This is creative. This is a creative platform. This is artistic. This is what creators do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's us. This unlearning is continual. It's going to be a continuous thing until the day I know I'm no longer here on this earth. We're going to continue to unlearn, but just to show those different parts of myself as I unlearn what systemic oppression in these spaces of fear have developed, especially through the war on drugs.
Yeah.
What do you think as far as unlearning for you, Henry? Can you see over your time? Because you got experience now where you've had multiple experiences too.
The question is, what have I had to unlearn?
Yeah, what surprised you most about what you may have gotten wrong, or what is it that what does it have on here, y'all? We reading moments that disrupted your thinking, clients, community, lived experience. You know, your unlearning process as you reflect on that.
Yeah. Well, I got, my first introduction to recovery through abstinence
Mm,
base. When it wasn't really my first, I mean, it was the only introduction, that I had. And, at the time, where we live at, it was it was the only, game in town, really. Yeah, they had methadone, um, but, that was for a certain group of people,
mm-hmm,
right? And so it's interesting, even how within our community we have our own stigma. Within the treatment community, within the harm reduction, and in the recovery community,
mm-hmm,
it's really interesting how we have um, our own stigma. You know, and a couple experiences. I remember Suboxone as a treatment for opioid use disorder was really just now making its way into the market when in 2008. And I remember the first time I was working in treatment. I remember the first time that I saw it, and I immediately felt this rush of anger and judgment over me,
mm-hmm,
thinking that this person, wasn't sober, that this person, wasn't in recovery.
mm,
And I had to, make my peace with the part of me that thinks that my way's the best way, and I had to, over time, begin to accept um, that there are all kinds of ways that people find themselves in a path of healing and restoration. And I made peace with that. I don't think I stayed there very long. I mean, I've always been a really open-minded person. So I think once I started to experience that more and see it more, um, I started to accept it more. And some time went by, and I'm involved in 12-step recovery. And there was a guy that was at the meeting, and we became friends. And upon becoming friends, he discloses that he's on methadone, and he's actively attending all of these 12-step meetings.
mm,
And at this point, I didn't necessarily care, that he was on methadone. I was just really grateful to build a connection with this other person that's, you know, on a similar journey. Um, And then he disclosed to me the shame and the ridicule
Mm,
experience when he would go to people and disclose this, trying to receive help, you know, a sponsorship. And so I started, working with this guy in 12-step recovery. And I noticed when I started working with him, the people that were judging him for the choices he made in his recovery, now I'm receiving all of these judgments about
mm,
choices somebody else is making. Well, we stayed friends for a while. And then at some point, he went back to injecting cocaine, and he overdosed, and he died.
mm,
And I don't necessarily want to admit it, but I will say that the stigma and the persecution and the shaming and the shunning, the outcasting, um, I believe certainly had an impact on this guy, and how he felt about himself, and the decisions that he made. He was just such
mm,
a good person, and so who am I
mm.
to think that I know what's best for someone, even being a clinician, being licensed, all of these things. Like, but still, who am I? Right?
Wow.
You heard me say this before. The greatest power that we all have in our lives is the power of choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to make a choice for anybody. I'm going to stay with them and support them as they make their own choice in whatever area of their life, and knowing that every choice has a consequence, intended or unintended.
Mm.
And as I make that choice, whatever that choice is, and whatever comes along with that, it's also up to me to own that as part of being in integrity with the choice that I originally made. And that is very empowering.
It is.
I don't have to like it, I don't have to feel good off of it, but it's also empowering knowing how influential and how impactful all of us are in the everyday decisions that we make.
That was that was great, Henry. Thank you for sharing that. And as you shared it, I resonate with that, and thank you for that transparency. I know that as I was listening to you, you reminded me of my earlier years in this space, and I saw that question again, and I was like, a truth, because Henry got real transparent. And I remember when I moved here, and I wouldn't go out with my friends that I've met, and I was so small. I had started realizing that people that I work with, my clients, they were everywhere. Henry, I came from Chicago, a big city. I was like, oh my God, they're everywhere. And what happened is I started the judgments that I was putting on substance use. They became big. I remember telling one of my friends in the field, I was like, well, I go out of town and I'll go to a bar or I drink. And they were like, so help me understand, are you in recovery? Or I was like, no, I'm just like, how do I go somewhere and one of my clients see me? They were like, whoa, wait a minute. So what does that say about you? And I remember sitting with that for a long time, like, what does that say about me? Like, what am I saying? And really, Henry, I don't think it caught up to me to fully understand until I was working at my job previously from here, where I was over a women's addiction recovery program. And I heard the clinician, so I worked through my stuff, went to, took care of myself clinically, therapy, and worked through my relationship, really gained new language and everything around my relationship to substance. But it didn't click until I had a therapist come concerned, because at a meeting where the clinical team was talking and everybody kind of broke off into side chats as everyone's getting their lunch, and this clinician shared about having a really good time on vacation and had a few drinks, and it was like and this therapist came very concerned, like, I need to talk to you. There's a clinician that's in recovery and they shared they went drunk. I think we need to do something. I was like, wait a minute, whoa. Are they intoxicated while they're here at the job? Like I was concerned because I was like, did they come in? Do you smell? I was really thinking this is what's happening. That wasn't it. It was this person shared a recovery part of themselves in this space that they started feeling safe in, and the clinical people walked away with the education that we've been given and said, this is a problem. Not they've demonstrated problematic behavior. This is a problem because you are supposed to be in recovery. Not, I know what recovery you're in. It's, you're in recovery. And I was like, whoa. And I had to work with my team on understanding language and understanding recovery because I'm like, so I understood it because I experienced that thought. I experienced it working in a program where cannabis use was happening amongst immunocompromised folks. And I had to become an advocate to my superiors about why we aren't going to disrupt people's housing and put them in jeopardy of losing their benefits because they're using something medically that hasn't completely been approved here, but their life is not chaotic and they're paying their bills and they're not breaking any rules. So it was like all of those experiences really helped me understand moving forward the entire concept of understanding drug culture in America and understanding relationship to substance. My relationship to substance looks way different than my 20-year-old relationship to substance.
Yeah.
So it's just, it was interesting as we wind down the time, folks. These conversations always are interesting to me because towards the end, it seemed like it becomes like doorknob therapy. Like, oh, wait a minute, we have so much more we could talk about, but we only have a few more minutes.
Yeah.
Um, we are leading in, folks, to such an amazing conversation with some guests in the next podcast that we're going to be doing on the 21st. As we dig deeper into this, we got Adam Larkin, who is the owner of Get Apparel. Yes, so you can go check out Adam's work at Get GITT. And we have Dr. Brodus, John Brodus, with Over Public Health, over overdose prevention at the state level through Vital Strategies. We got these folks coming to really chop it up with us as we unpack culture and reframing and talking about all things and how culture and our substances and the use, how all these things connect, even with policy, even with clothing, even with the arts, with creativity and creative spaces. Um, as we begin to wrap up, here's a reflection, a question for you. Where do you see drug culture in your everyday life? And how does it shape how you view healing? Where do you see drug culture in your everyday life? And how does it shape how you view healing? It's something to really ponder. I think about that a lot. Um, I love music, right? I think about the moods I want to be in. I also think about the culture we live in substance use and our embracing of substance use and our toxic relationship that we have with substance use, our chaotic relationship, our misunderstood relationship, right? How does that fit into the healing spectrum?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be looking at my music all day today on as I'm listening to it, like, why am I listening to this song? I feel like that's what I'm gonna be doing um, today. I might have some jazz though a little bit later. I think I just don't want words today. I think that's where I'm at. Where are you? Where do you think you are with today? Any artistic things coming up for you?
Well, I go back and forth over the last few weeks between the Carter Six and music, piano, a lot of piano music.
Mm, piano. It's something about that piano when it's played a certain way. You can feel it. Just like I feel about drums. I've been listening to my African drums. I have a djembe at home. So I don't know. I might have some drums going on in here. The ancestors, I'll be calling on them. My team will be like, what's happening in that office? Um, hey, you guys, we are entering into the final minutes. Check us out. Throw down your answers. Share with us as you watch this throughout the week and leading up to the next 2 weeks before we come back on the 21st. Answer that question for us. We would love to hear your thoughts, see your thoughts. Um, our donation link is up there. I just looked at the screen again. I'm seeing it. We appreciate all the people who have been donating through this link. We have people that have actually been taking the time out. So we want to thank you and appreciate you for doing that. Hey there, Athena. Thanks for joining. We want to encourage you to go to our YouTube and follow that YouTube and subscribe on our YouTube. We want to get to a point where we can go live on YouTube at times, and we're getting closer and closer. We have to have so many subscribers on that platform. Anything else you want to share before we get taken out of here, Henry?
Nope.
Think about the music you listen to today, you guys. Think about what mood it puts you in, and let me know if you have a yep category for your Spotify or your Apple Music link. I might share mine with you today. I might share my link on there so y'all can see what I listen to when I'm in that mood.
Good episode, sis. I'll see you next time.
I'll see you next time.
All
We're
right, take care,
out.
y'all. Yeah, we're out. See y'all.